Do you feel sometimes that you don't have control over your learning journey? And that will be the topic we're going to have tonight, because as I am continuing to teach, as I am meeting new students, more and more I realize that I am catering a lot of my teaching so that in order to focus on key topics so that my students see the catered information. And guess what? They are doing amazingly well. But I think tonight we need to look at this idea that we need to find ways to feed positively our brain. So let's see what it means. Now, I know that some of you will say, well, I don't need to have control of my learning. I don't want to think. All I want to do is go to class. We need teachers to tell me what I need to learn, and that's all I need to know. I understand that for some people, that's what's most important. However, we are looking for thinkers. We are looking for students to be able to think critically, to think creatively, and therefore we need to find occasions for them to go beyond what they know. So let's see how we can organize that tonight. So the big topic tonight is how can we better feed our brain? So welcome to my podcast. My name is Alain Faber, and I've been teaching science in high school for more than 25 years. And I'm sharing with you some ideas that I come across either through conversations with friends or from my reflection when I drive back home. So let's see. When we are going to school, when we are a manager, you have a team, you manage a team, you're a teacher, you're a parent, you lead your community. What happens is that you want to be in a situation where you are planning for success for everybody. So if you're a student, you want to make sure that you are planning for your success. If you're learning any topics, either for personal preference or for work, if you can find a way to plan for success, that's even better. As a teacher, we want to plan for success. If you're a parent, we want to plan for success. If you are a team leader, a CEO of your company, you want to plan for success. What does that mean? How can we make things better for everybody involved? And this is the topic I have for you tonight. So if you're new to my podcast, I always divide the podcast in a few perspectives. Tonight, we're going to look at the student's perspective, then the teacher's perspective. And then we'll see if I have a chance. We'll talk about the leader's perspective. But at this time, we'll focus on the first two tonight. Now, if you look at the student's perspective, so here it could be teenagers, young people, young adults, older adults. When you are learning something new, often if you look at it logically, you want to know what the topics are. You want a list of topics you need to learn or you're learning. You want a checklist outlining exactly what you need to work on. And if you are looking at those, then you create your own notes, your own reference notes, and that is helping you to succeed in, for example, how do I say that? In evaluations or when people are asking you to give output from what you've learned. Now, this is beautiful, and that has changed over the decades. Because if you think, so in the past, we used to have textbooks, and textbooks had table of content, and all the information was in there. Especially if you had a science class, geography class, if you had a finance class, or physics class that I had in university. The difficulties I notice now is that the more I teach, the more I organize my classes for success. So what does that mean? So as I mentioned a few moments ago, I make sure that I have a list of topics we're going to cover. I have a list of all the links of things students can refer to. Information is easily available. I provide checklists for what we're doing, what we need to do, so that when we have an evaluation, students know exactly what we're looking for. And it is quite nice because it provides information to the students to maximize success. And I have to say that over the decades, my averages has increased in many ways. And the reason for that is that students know exactly what they've been learning, and they also know what will be on the evaluations. But I realized that when we had textbooks, So if you go back 20 years in science, for example, you had several reference uh, work. And then so I always loved to read textbooks. So I would read different textbooks about similar topics, come up with the best information to carry, to look for the best labs to do, to look for the best questions to answer. And therefore, I was building my classes that way. But more and more, when we are doing classes, students are just aware of what we show them, what information the teachers thinks is important. And then we evaluate students on what is important from our class. But I find sometimes that we need to find more ways to feed the student's brain. When I say that is that I know that students spend the evenings, afternoon, sometimes lunchtime to look at social media. So these are small clips, information, opinions from different people on the web. However, if you are learning a new topic, for example, we just finished a unit on electricity and circuits. If you're able to find social media posts, videos about what you're learning, then you can expand on the topics that are covered in class. And I think that it is important, especially if you're looking for ways to expand your brain, to feed your brain. And that's important because the student can, at that time, have more perspective that will be different than other students. They'll be able to have interesting questions that will come up in their mind as they read or watch a different video. They will also be able to bring interesting questions in the classroom based on what they've learned. And I think it's important because students at some point, they need to learn different things so that they become more unique. So some students will know some topics, others will learn other topics, so that as they grow, especially in grade 9 and 10 and 11 and 12, so they become more unique with their own interests, and then we can feed those interests, and that's what makes students individuals unique in what they do. And I think in some ways, sometimes I'm missing out on how to best feed the brains of my students. I do give them topics. I covered a whole bunch of subjects. They have checklists. But often it is almost, we know what we have to do. We know what we have to study. We know what will be on the tests. But often it feels like it's within the parameter of what is given in the classroom. I have 110 hours with them. Whereas if you think of the hours of reading someone could do, watching videos or documentaries on specific topics. In the last couple of weeks, I've been looking on TikTok at different ways we can build circuits and also how we can use coding, and therefore linking electrical circuits with what we're learning in class. So these are something I'm looking into. It is exciting for me. And then I realized that if I'm learning those, but until I can implement them in my classes, they are missing out on that. So here I need to figure out how I can link that in my classroom. So that brings me to the idea that students need to find ways to feed their brains with the activities they can do. Now, if we go to the teacher's perspective, my second portion of this podcast. So as a teacher, let's see my science class. I know what the curriculum is. I know what the topics are. I know what I have to teach to make sure that I cover the curriculum. But in many ways, as I mentioned for the student segment, I have a list of topics, I have a list of resources that I provide for the students. In many ways, we have to mainstream the topic. So we have 110 hours to cover the curriculum, make sure understanding happens, for me to give opportunities for the students to learn, but also give opportunities for students to show me what they've learned, either through different kinds of evaluations and activities throughout a semester. So, but what I noticed is that once I have that list of topics, and then once I have a checklist of all I need to show them, what happens here is that we end up with always similar resources. And I know that outside of the class, I'm always learning something new. But the time it takes, the delay it takes between the time I learn something new and the time I bring it to a team, and by the time it gets to my class, there's some delays that can happen. And you know what? Sometimes it doesn't even get into my classes because we get busy with other things that we need to do for a classroom. So this whole idea here is that how can we as a teacher become better? So my first thing is always, well, I'm used to read about different topics to be better at it. Now, in 2024, we have videos on YouTube, for example. We also have short videos on, it could be on Instagram, TikTok, or other platforms. So here it's much more with where you see a video and you listen to somebody. But not everybody are visual or listeners. Some people like to read a few things, and I've realized that we don't always read as fast as a video would go. And because of that, as you read, I think it allows students and teachers to have good questions as they read. And I think that's something that's been missing because as a teacher, it is important for me to feed my brain so that I can be better at teaching. I feed my brain so I can be a better parent, better citizen, a better person overall. Now, what's happening though is that if you need to feed your brain, are you feeding your brain the best as possible? So if you look on social media and you have people with opinions, short-sighted ideas on specific topics, it's much harder to feed our brain, especially that the internet is full of perspective and often, most likely, most of the time, not even related what you want to learn, not related to what you need to teach, and therefore we need to figure out how this can work. So this is a thought today, this whole idea that students need to feed their brain. And if they love using their phones for videos and texting, I understand. Why not find a way for them to learn about the topics that we're covering? So that means that if they're doing a language course, maybe have a video where they're listening to a novel. Whereas as they read, they listen, they can look at different perspective that different people have on a specific book so that they can build better conversations. So that's something I have to do because often in my classes right now, when I have the list of things we want to do and I outline what we're doing, giving a chance to bring my resources, then students says, well, if this is what I need to learn, why would I need to go beyond that? And that's something we have to always nurture students' interest. Because if we don't, then we end up with similar students knowing similar topics and therefore being very uniform as group, which could be good because then they might be people teaching them in the future year. They know exactly what to expect. However, I do believe in diversity. So that means that the more students follow their own interests within the topics we're covering, I think that makes better, well-rounded individual, creative thinkers, and what's the other one? Creative and critical thinkers. That's something we have to keep in mind. Because for success, it is easy if you have a list of what to do, a checklist, and you know exactly what to expect. But life is not always about always something that is well predefined. Activities, information, and knowledge and outcomes. So that's something we have to look into. That's my topic today because as I try to get my classes better every day, I always have this thought where, what if I brought something new or different in the classroom? Which is always a good idea. But then would I be able to cover all the things I need to cover? Would it be, and then the whole question here, it goes back to, let's see if I can organize classes, curriculum, so that we can do something amazing. Do I have the answer? Far from it. Would it be better as we go along? For sure. It takes time, and I believe in my students as I believe that I can do something great as we go along, and I believe in parents as well, doing what they can for their children. On this, I will wish you a wonderful afternoon, wonderful evening. Happy to have discussed this topic, and keep in mind, if you are working on planning for success, feed your brain with amazing information. On this, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Take care.